So we've looked at props, we've looked at state. Now the final piece of the puzzle is use effect. So now use effect is a React hook. If you look at use effect is actually something called component. It's I can say it wraps the whole thing. Components will mount, components will update, components will receive updates. So it has. I know it might be strange if you haven't heard of class component, but use effect is actually a way of giving some. Let's say we want to re-render this component, but now there should be conditions. Is this component is a dependency of this component? Has it changed? Is it worth re-rendering? So just to minimize that form of re-rendering all the time, because that might be an issue. Let's say we're fetching data from the database or from an external API. We don't want the component to re-render every time we do something. Now we want to make sure that, okay, has the value changed for, let's say, the records in the API? Has something changed? Then if yes, okay, yes, okay, go, you can go ahead, fetch another uh make another call to the API, right? So that's really something cool. You don't want to keep re-rendering the same component because that might be expensive. All right. And also, I also want to pass across the message of this showing here. So if I type in B, you can see we get nothing here. So I just want to give that clear point on how the whole re-rendering cycle comes to play. For that, now we need to import use effect because it's another React hook. Now use effect goes like this. So we have our use effect function. It takes in a method or a function that should run, and we want to run that function again if one of the dependencies changes. So we have the use effect, we have the function within, and we have as a parameter to the use effect the dependencies. So let's see that in action. So we have use effect, and it takes in a function. So let's pass in that function right here as the first argument, and the second argument is the dependency array. So now let's just say we want to write a function here. Let's just write a function. Actually, I'm going to give this function a name. So let's just say const say hello, which is kind of a dumb function to write, but let's just go with it. And what we're going to do, we want to say hello world. So let's log hello world. Now I'm going to call the function say hello. Now you're going to notice something. Once I hit save, we're going to see hello world in the console, but this is only going to run once because there's no dependency attached to the use effect. So let me save that and give you a quick hint. And you can see we have hello world, and it's actually printed out 4 times because I believe, yeah, of course it's supposed to print 4 times because we have 4 input field, right? So that is fine. So that's working fine. So it's actually printed once, but because we have 4 input field which they use the same use effect, so it has to print 4 times. But if we had 1, it will only print once. So in that way, I can say it's only printed once. So once I reload, you can see it will print again once, or in this case 4 times because we have 4 components, but it's printing just once. Now if I start typing, you can see that we have something, but we never see our hello world ever again. So now this is a cool thing if you only want something to load once. So for example, let's say once we have this page rendered, or once we have that component in rendered, we want to fetch something from the API, or we want to check is this user logged in. You don't want to keep checking if the user is logged in all the time, right? That is very expensive. So you only want to check if the user is logged in once they actually visited the component for the first time. That's a really cool idea, right? Or you just want to save something to local storage. You don't want to keep saving that. So that is one of the cool thing of having an empty dependency array. Now if we pass in nothing as a dependency array because it's optional, and let me try typing. You can see we always going to have hello world,
And that is cool if that's what you want, but this is also very expensive because anything that changes in your component, any state that changes in your component will re-render the entire application. You don't want that, right? In case you're fetching something from a, I'm going to still use the same example, fetching it from a REST API. That is expensive, right? So you don't want to do that. So let's say we only want to show hello world again once text changes. So whenever text changes, we want to show hello world. All right, so let's reload. Let's clear the console and so we can have a fresh start. So once I type in E, we get hello world. Now I don't know if you got it, if you got the point. So it's printed out nothing because initially the text is empty, right? Because we didn't pass any value, so it's going to be empty by default. So after setting that state now, that was when we now printed. When the component has now re-rendered, that's when we printed hello world. We type in A. Now we see the previous snapshot, which is, or let's say the current snapshot, which is E, before it was now updated to A, to EA right now. Then we have hello world. So if we type in R, you can see we have EA. Then after the re-rendering, now that state now has the latest snapshot. So in the case you actually want to use the latest text instead of depending on the snapshot, like something like this, you don't. This is only useful. Let's say you have a form. Then once you finish setting, you know that when you click on send or confirm or login, you already have the latest snapshot. That is cool. But if you want to have it on the go, there's no need of setting the state. You can just have it directly from here. So once I have this, when I keep typing, you can see that if I type, I get the latest thing of what I want. Okay, so see you in the next lecture.